Welcome back, everyone, to the 10th episode of the It's Finance Made podcast. We're still in Portugal, at least the three of us, Kareem, Alex, and me. Augusto is having artificial light. We can see that. There's no way this is the real sun in Berlin. I'm sorry.
Let's say I'm in a different time zone. Let's leave it at that.
Okay. Today's topic is independence and planning for independence. And it's not about financial independence per se. The finances is a big part of independence for everyone, but it's not the end goal and it's not necessarily the first point you have to start from. Financial independence is also like not just a number, right? It's the ability to choose where you live, how you work, what lifestyle you want to keep. And today in this episode, we're trying to break down independence into some more practical layers. We're going to speak about what independence means to each of us and how you can maybe change a little bit your thinking and your frameworks around independence and what it means to you personally as well. And how you can get there through financial planning, because financial planning is not only planning your finances, but it's planning your life and backing it up with your finances. So not only, looking at your investments, not looking at like one simple thing, but it's really looking at your life and how your finances can support that and grow that and make all of that better. So I'm looking forward to this episode. Why don't we just get right ahead and start with you, Kareem? What does independence mean to you?
Well, for me, I think I've been working for many years in different companies, and obviously that has a big time drain on you. But also, I always felt that I didn't have much influence on the people that I surround myself with throughout the day, right? Like when you work in a company, you don't really get to choose fully like all the different types of people that you are surrounded with. And I think the type of people that surround you have a big impact on your mental state and about like also your development and how you grow and what you learn. So a big part of independence for me, and this was why I mentioned, like a couple of weeks ago, why I already feel like I have retired in a way, is a big part of being independent for me is being able to start my own business and a way to select the people that I surround myself with on a day-to-day basis. So basically, like the three other people in this room, for example, and being able to also have a lot more autonomy on my schedule and my time. Like some days I'm not feeling it and go to gym in the morning and then go to work at lunch, and I'm a million times more productive than if I just went straight to work and sat there for 8 hours thinking about how tired I am. Right? Or being able to play paddle at like Tuesday 12 when it's cheap and sunny outside has a big impact on my mental state. And again, it allows me to be more productive. Of course, letting go of that sort of more structured way of having an income or a fixed monthly income is also you know needs then a bit more financial planning, right? Like how then do I design my income sources to reflect that independence that I was seeking or that I feel that I needed in my life. So I think like that's sort of where we see that financial planning can also have a good impact, like I think we do try to empower people to be able to go after what independence means to them, but then there are financial implications to that. So we try to look at that together with our clients, basically.
Yeah, that's the whole, like, who you spend your time with is a very big part, right? And I think it becomes increasingly more that, at least from what I've heard or what I've read from our clients at the moment, that seems to be a big theme. And this starting your own business, like sort of being your own boss, comes with a lot of the other perks, right? Like, hey, I can then choose like where I am. I can then choose like how I control my life. I mean, starting a business is not for everyone, sure, but we do get a lot. And then financial planning also there helps you to, like, with the timing of the decision a little bit, because sometimes it can really be crucial. Alex told me the other day, we've had somebody, like wanting to build sort of more real estate into their portfolio, and then they bought the first and they wanted to buy the second, and then they just like in between like quit their job and then banks obviously don't really like that. Like, no, there was not like a mortgage that's you probably won't get a mortgage easily and sort of stuff like that. But more to that later. Alex, you want to go next? What does independence mean to you?
So for me, independence means to choose how I spend my time. Like, of course, that means what I do and when I do it, but most of all, it means with whom I spend my time, right? The people that I'm interacting with. For example, you guys, our partners, our clients, because I mean, we do a lot of work, right? We spend a lot of our day working. So I think that's actually very important to me, who are, for example, our clients and who are the people that I'm working with. So, and that to me has a very personal like story. Like my mom, she worked in a government job in a management position, and she came home every day like hating the job she was doing. She was making really good money for sure. And for her, independence was being financially independent from anybody else. So that meant she had to, in her mind, work that job and not do something else, because it was a very specialized job, and it was hard for her had to anything else that would make a similar amount of money. But she felt like that she, really had issues with the people that she was working with, that she wasn't appreciated and so on. So she was really suffering every day, but she kept going there because for her, that was independence. Independence meant financial independence. I think it was a different generation. And I could see that, her suffering every day, but yeah, that's what independence meant to her. And she was really looking forward to retirement. She was talking about it a lot, what she would do with all that time, like playing music, being in the garden and so on. So she had this vision of like retirement as her place where she could really then fulfill everything that she wanted to do. I could never really envision her to stop working and really just be at peace and enjoy her life. That to me was a very odd thought. And what happened was that shortly before retirement, a couple of years before, she got cancer and she passed away on her first day of retirement, which really showed me that I'd say the danger of delaying your life, like delaying to do the things that you actually want to do. And shortly after, I decided to then figure out what independence means to me and stop waiting for something to happen in the future and just take action. And for me, that just meant, I didn't know what that exactly meant to me at the time, but I knew that I wanted to mix things up. So I actually quit my job and my apartment in Berlin and decided to just, like mix it up and see what happens. I bought a motorhome. I started to travel Europe. When I sat down and figured out what I wanted to do for work, one of the first things that I did before even knowing what I would want to do was thinking about who are the people that I want to spend my time with and trying to figure out, what are the characteristics of the people that I want to work with, like adjectives like, humble, and giving, for example. Those things came up, and I knew I would love to spend time with people like that. And I know all three of you, for example, are those essentially. And a lot of our customers, or I would say almost all of our customers and also our partners fit really into that picture. And I'm surprised how that actually came to be. But that's something that I started visualizing, and I think I was bit by bit building I still am building my idea of independence, right? Locational independence. We're in Portugal right now, deciding how to use our time and the time, how to spend every day, and the things we're working on, and the people that we're spending time with. So that's what independence means to me, and the big part of it is tackling it now and not necessarily delaying it. But yeah, of course, it comes also with, trade-offs, for example, things like security, right? So I think it's not as easy as it sounds, but it's definitely for me something, the importance is like figuring out what that means to me, figuring out what that means to me, and then taking action.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I mean, we knew the story before. We might have actually told that one before on a different podcast as well. But yeah, for anyone listening, I mean, I don't know, I would probably be very similar if I would have gone through that situation. And, there's different life events that can happen to different people. It usually is like that like something changes then drastically, or you make drastic changes. And yeah, like if you then also have, Alex back then maybe had that naturally without even thinking about it, but doing a little bit of financial planning in his back and like having a little roadmap without like subconsciously, since he's like been working in finance for a long time. And yeah, that would be interesting. Did you actually did you do like some financial planning is sort of when you started that life? Actually, I don't even know.
So I had savings, right? And I kind of figured out how to sustain myself because I knew that I would first want to take some time to get the motorhome fixed, and then do some traveling and not immediately have the pressure of needing to make money within the first 6 months. And then also took it slow with figuring out what do I actually want to spend my time building. So I did have a bit of a plan and an idea of like how much runway do I need, much runway would I want to give myself. But so I did some calculations, how much money am I gonna roughly spend, right? So and how much time does that buy me with my savings? So that part I did, and I definitely reduced my spending to give me more runway. But that was pretty much it, right? I mean, because what else are you gonna do? Of course, I did a business plan for the business, but that was that I trashed pretty much the moment I did it, because my original thought was more going to companies and doing financial planning for employees. I think Kareem, we were talking about it initially, but the moment I did the business plan, I decided that I actually want to spend the winter in Crete and not do sales with companies in Berlin. And then I completely deviated from the plan once it was finished. But it helped me get clarity. So planning generally is a good thing, I would say. But then sticking to a plan is not necessarily helpful in the end. Plans change, so but it's good to plan.
It's the classical, I'm doing a business plan and throw it away after it's written, or never look at it again. But in a way, like business planning has, I guess there's similarities to financial planning, where it's not that one plan that's gonna, necessarily turn out to be how you then like really go forward. But the planning process itself reveals a lot of insights and things you maybe have not thought about before without going through that process. So yeah, that's interesting. Cool. So next one, Augusto, what does independence mean for you?
I guess I resonate with everything that everyone else shared. I think again, I mean, it's hard to come after Alex on this one. Something perhaps orthogonal to what everyone was sharing is also, for me, it was also like much less emotional, much less personal almost, but choosing the problems you work on. I've always been driven by solving problems that I feel matter, and solving them, and applying intellect and applying my head to it. And I remember I was like, my first job was in management consulting, and it was a typical consulting job. It's like, 10, 12-hour days were the norm. And I remember towards the end, I was working for a very uninteresting project that was extremely challenging. And I remember I was coming back home and sitting down and learning machine learning. And like, I did that for like 2 months. I was like sleeping nothing. And I was like, okay, something here has to change. And I ended up changing, like deciding to change to careers, to change to a role in like adjacent to machine learning that was a lot more junior than what I was doing before. So I was like, I took a significant pay cut there. But at the time, being able to make that decision was kind of a very good realization of what independence means to me. And that shaped a lot of my professional decisions, at least. I follow, like I mirror what everyone else is saying. It's also, to me, it's also very important who I surround myself with, and being able, like kind of what Karim was saying, I don't know, being able to see like, oh, the sun is shining, I can take a train and go to the mountains. And having that possibility, or having the possibility to spend an entire morning with my child, for example, instead of having to go to an office. But yeah, perhaps like the one I could add to what everyone said is like the ability to choose what you work on, and what kinds of problems you solve. I have multiple times in my career done that, like getting extremely overworked because the thing that is paying my bills is not the problem I want to be solving. Adding 4 extra hours at the end of the day. I don't recommend that. Don't do that. This is not financial advice or personal. But yeah, that's that'll be my addition.
What about you, Daniel?
For me, I mean, yeah, it's very similar. One thing that's not been mentioned yet is the sort of family aspect. I live apart from my family. I mean, not that far, right? They live in the south of Germany. I live in Berlin, but still, it's you still have to like travel and not just like go for a day usually. And then like have the flexibility to, especially in summer, like it's very nice there, like just go there sort of when I want and for how long I want, and then be flexible to when they like when they're on holiday and stuff. And then my partner is from South Africa, and she has siblings that also live across Europe, so also have that freedom to like travel with her to see her family, and be sort of yeah, not always to have to think of like, oh, how can I align this now, like how should I bring this up to the person that I need to bring this up to. And just like be able to make plans that sort of like suit me. Of course, there's a business side to it. Now we're building a business, so there's a side of that, but yeah, it's obviously much less. And then now that we're still quite small, we can still like have a workaround. And yeah, it's in terms of like how how to make decisions. Like for me, the financial stuff does have a big impact on how I like feel. Like obviously, Alex said there's downsides to like just jumping into something new with the security and stuff. And yeah, of course, I mean, the finances in your bank, or in your investment portfolio, whatever, they definitely make you feel either like more confident and more comfortable about taking a leap of faith, or they don't, right? And then depending on how much of a risk taker you are, that impacts that decision as well. But yeah, for me, in terms of how I did a little bit of financial planning around that, it's just like, yeah, really mapping it out and actually decreasing my investment size and having a bit more in my like sort of emergency fund or rainy day fund, and yeah, not to like be subject to the volatility with money that I might need. Well, I can always invest it later again. That was sort of my mindset behind that, which, yeah, in my case meant selling something that I didn't really want to sell. But, at the end of the day, it really helped me to make that decision. Alex, you have your hand raised. Let's go.
Thanks. Yeah. That's something I also did, like sell some assets that I invested more risky, like starting actually with the most risky, like pretty much, yeah, selling all the crypto that I had. Because yeah, that to me meant the most risk in terms of like, if I actually need that money, because it takes me a bit longer to make money. I was like, I'd rather not have put too much pressure on myself, but I'd rather have the money liquid. Because if crypto just goes for a race to the bottom, then it's not helpful in that situation. So I was like, okay, I sell it when it's actually at a decent price, give myself some more time for my business to figure out what I want, and then to get going. The other part that actually I wanted to ask you is in terms of family, right? Because I had the same thing when I quit my job. I was like, I realized that being in Berlin, going home to see my dad, that I would only be there for maybe like a week per year. And my parents were already a bit older. I think my dad is now 74, 75. So, and my mom passed away when she was 60, right? So meaning kind of like, you can lose your parents anytime, right? They don't, you cannot really count on that. And I realized that I do want to spend more time with my dad then, and also my brother, but mostly, my dad, because my brother is going to be around a bit longer. Because I realized that if I only go home for like a week in a year, then there's not much time that I would be spending with him, right? Even if he grows old, like in terms of days, it would be months that I would be spending with him, right? So I was like, okay, if I get a motorhome, he really likes that stuff, so he would be helping me. Also, for example, 2 years ago, I went to Morocco, spent 3 months in Morocco with him. He goes there every year with his motorhome, and also was more excited than I think I was when I told him that I would, buy a motorhome, because he's a camper, always been, and he really likes the stuff. So he was very excited to show me the ropes, help me put solar power on the roof and stuff like that, and share his his camper wisdom with me. So I think that was also a part that influenced that decision, actually, to get a van. And I mean, the other part was that I had a dog, and just traveling like a nomad, flying somewhere to cities was not really possible with a dog. So, but yeah, my question to you was it also something you thought about, like, the time that you have left with your parents?
Definitely. Like, I saw this chart once, like there's multiple charts, but there's like one that you might have seen with like time spent with like different groups of people, and then it's like parents is one line, and it like very big in it, and it's like falls off the cliff. And then like friends and like work colleagues, like huge bump, and just really interesting like visualizations around that concept. So that's one. But it's like, whoa, most people spend like most of their adult life with like work colleagues, and that can be great, obviously, also in this case. But yeah, it can not be so great if you're like not enjoying that, right? And then I saw a different thing, or like a different, maybe it was from a book or something, where it's sort of similar to you. Is like, okay, if I see them once, like 1 week every year, and let's say they have like 30 years, I'll see them 30 times. So every time you go, you can scratch one off. So it's like, okay, 29, 28, 27, 26. Right? And obviously thinking about that is maybe not the best, but it's sort of, yeah, it sort of got me thinking. If you can go there twice a year or 3 times a year, you can like 2x or 3x that number, which then makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, no, definitely. I did think about that in different ways. Yeah, like not just my parents, but also, my sister and friends that I have at home, more extended family that I grew up very closely with, and stuff like that. So yeah. And it's just a nice sort of retreat thing for me, because it's like in a village, like somewhere at the Rhine, and the summers there are really, really nice. So if you can spend time there in summer, especially, avoiding sort of the super humid, like sweaty, stinky Berlin summer, then that's a perfect place to go.
If you listen to this podcast enough, I think the biggest conclusion that you'll draw is that Berlin sucks year round. I personally disagree, but it's a conclusion you may draw.
No, there's good part. There's good months for
There's
sure.
like 3 weeks that
We've all lived there. I mean, or still live there. I also still have my base there.
Yeah.
I think, like, coming back, like, because I mean, we're all obviously relatively entrepreneurial, like starting like a company and so on. So I think, like, in terms of sorts of things that we value in terms of independence isn't necessarily reflective either of our clients, either or of the general population, I would say. But I think, like, to the two different sorts of people, like, for example, my brother, like, works still in a like 9 to 5 job. He has 2 small kids, but he chose a job where he knows he can also work remotely, right? Like, because I think for him, like, being independent doesn't necessarily mean going on this route of having your own company. He actually would find that very stressful for him, and having that sort of secure income allows him to have independence. But then the type of work that he chooses to do just allows him the remote flexibility to be able to spend time with his kids. And to him, that really is independence for him. And the job actually creates the independence for him. And I think that's sort of, again, like all about priorities and all about knowing your priorities, understanding your priorities. And then if you can do that, you can also engage much better in financial planning, right? Like if you really know, like in terms of, all the different types of independence that you can have, like in terms of location, in terms of being able to travel, being able to choose your time, choose the people that you're around. Like it really makes a difference than how you should orient not just your life plan, but then also to reflect that your financial planning as well, and to think about what that actually means financially.
Yeah, and I just to add to your point, it's a very good one, and yeah, like you said, we're all quite entrepreneurial, so sometimes we forget about that part, but you're completely right. I mean, not everyone has the sort of same like personality, obviously, and some people thrive a lot on having that stability of having a job. Like there's very well-paid jobs with like lots of holidays, and you can also have a great team on the job. Like, that's all possible, right? And I also have a lot of friends who are like super happy in their roles. They feel super fulfilled, and they have a great setup where they can build the life they want around that. And I totally agree that you don't have to have your own business. I mean, there's a lot of social media content. Oh, you need to do this. You need to have a side hustle and blah blah blah. And no, it's not true, right? It's not true. It can be true for some people if you're really into that, but it doesn't need to be. And you can totally like do something great with like being employed. There's nothing bad about it at all. And yeah, like that sort of security can already create a lot of independent feelings for you. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up.
I think on kind of connecting to that, and something that when you were talking, Daniel, about you visiting your parents, it did resonate a lot with an experience, similar experience that I have is I have like this ritual. I mean, my parents live in Argentina. It's pretty far. Um, for those of you who haven't seen a map, it's a 13-hour flight. And if you do it in the holidays, it's close to over $1,000 per person. And I always thought about this, like, ticking number of like how many times I'm going to see my parents, how many times I'm going to see my high school friends. If I go there once a year or less, because maybe this year we might not go. And one of the things that I always kind of realize or think about is I missed out a lot of opportunities of going back at random times that I felt like going, just because I had this expectation, this internal belief that like, oh, it's, I should only go when it's vacation. I should not perhaps I should not push at work when I was working for someone. I should not push for more time. I know it's discomforting for the team if I am in a different time zone or something like that. I think it's also connecting to what you guys were saying just now about like, you shouldn't follow recipes to understand, like, to define your idea of independence, to define your life and like your plan for your life and what that means to you. You shouldn't follow recipes. Like some people, if you open TikTok, everyone's going to tell you like you should do a lot of invest, make your own business, buy options, whatever. You should not follow. I am obsessed with like TikTokers offering options. um you should know what is your priority, what it actually means, like what actually is your definition, personal definition of independence, of a good life. And yeah, and like when you hear yourself like thinking, this is what I should do, this is the right thing to do, I should put all my effort now so I can retire and do my thing, I should put all my effort in starting a business even though like I don't like the risk that it carries, or like the variability in income, for example, makes me very uneasy, or I should stay in Germany year round and go only on the holidays because that's the allowed time to go across the Atlantic for some reason. Those are all the moments when you have like that inner voice inside your head saying, this is how it's done. To me, that's like, now that I think about this, now that we're talking about this, to me, that's actually the ultimate definition of independence, is like not listening to that and listening to actually what you want. Um, so yeah, maybe your definition of independence is having a job that lets you hang out with your kids.
Alex, you can go.
Yeah. That's well said. I also have a brother similar to Kareem, who's also an engineer. For him, starting his own business is something that would definitely give him anxiety and not necessarily feel very independent to him. I probably feel like he has to work nonstop and get very anxious about it. That's at least how I perceive it, even so he might like working by himself, depending on himself, and I think he would do really well. But to him, I probably wouldn't feel so much independence, right? He has a lot of hobbies and he really enjoys having a job and, dropping the pen the minute the job is over, and then, his life starts and he starts doing what he wants to do and he doesn't have to think about the job anymore. So that for him is independence, right? I think it's very different from us. I think all of us would agree that if we like the people we're working with and if we are excited about the topic, I'm sure we don't mind, like talking about it all day long, every day, brainstorming ideas, figuring out how to build something. I think that actually for us is a lot of the fun about it, right? It's like keeping at it and having a purpose in what we're doing, right? I think that, but for other people, it's different, I think. And that's absolutely okay. One component I think that is still the same though is money. Like for example, for my brother, he would probably wouldn't mind to start his own business if he felt like there was no financial pressure. Meaning, if he felt comfortable enough making a living, I think he would very well just want to focus on his projects and make one of his engineering projects maybe into a business and so on. But I think what would give him anxiety at the moment is the pressure to have an income and have stability in that income, right? But this is something that he can start working on now by building actually wealth, for example, lowering his taxes through real estate. I mean, it's already doing, ETF investments and so on. But he could probably do a little bit more with a little bit of financial planning. And I think he could then actually get to a point where he would also feel comfortable being a bit more entrepreneurial, because I'm sure he would be good. He's very rigid. He's very organized and so on in starting a business, but he would definitely need to put himself in a situation where he's not under pressure to get it done, right? Because that, I think he wouldn't really enjoy that, the financial pressure of being an entrepreneur. But he can probably, if you know that's something he might want to do, he could plan ahead financially and, make that or reduce that financial pressure now, so you can start something entrepreneurial in, a few years from now.
So you touched an important point there, where we can get a bit more practical for the last sort of 10 minutes and speak a bit more about what you can actually do. Like now it was a lot about how we see independence, what it means to us, and all the ways. And I hope all of the stuff that we said maybe got you thinking a little bit, and maybe you can identify yourself in some of these situations. And yeah, to be a bit more practical, like if I would be an international or non-international in Germany right now, and let's say, I don't know, I'm in my mid-30s, and what can I do? Like there's different ways. It obviously depends a lot on your current situation, like your current financial situation, on what you can do. If I would be working in a corporate and I would have a very stable job, I would have a high income, and I would have, like a good surplus every month, meaning, the stuff that is left after income minus expenses, then I would definitely look into two sort of, avenues. I would look into putting some portion of it into capital markets, and I would most likely, like Alex already mentioned, look into real estate. If that's something that you're comfortable with. If you've not been comfortable with, then I would just at least spend the time educating yourself on it and see what it could actually do. It can be daunting for some people, but at the end of the day, if you do it well, there is a chance it's not that daunting. And the beauty of that is, if I have a high income, I can reduce my taxes a lot if I have the right property. There's different types of property that, helps you in different ways to reduce your taxes. But that's something that's very hard to replicate one-to-one if you think about total return, right? Like if you can reduce your taxes by a couple thousand in the first couple years of having it, then you first need to achieve that sort of performance somewhere else. And if I would have let's say a bit less income, then, I would maybe stick to something more liquid. I would definitely think about some sort of emergency fund and how much there should be in there. And then if I already have properties, I already have a big portfolio, then I would look into if I could already retire. We've had that also. Maybe some people could already do something like that. So it could maybe take a leap of faith, but they don't know. So calculating that stuff and looking at it could maybe reveal that. Or of course, like if you want to keep growing it, you keep growing it, but maybe in a way that, then eventually suits your goals. So yeah, that's a bit practical ideas how I would personally do it. Not financial advice, but yeah, sort of my thoughts. You guys can add to it if you want.
Yeah, those are some good examples. Yeah, it really depends on what independence means to you, right? So for my brother, it means right now reducing his time to 80% for him and his wife, because they just got a newborn baby and they want to spend some time with that. So that's also something they're planning for long term. They calculated what does it mean financially if they reduce the income or the time work to only like 30 hours per week. They calculated what that means for their pension and so on. I think it's actually good exercise, right? Because for them, that's at the moment most important is to spend time with their family, and figure out if that actually works out for their financial plans also in the long term. For other people, like one of our clients, for example, he's working in a corporate job, building a side business. For him, like he's figuring out if he wants to grow his business, and this can also be an investment, right? This can also be financially, if you look at it, if that's what independence means to him. Like it might be that for now, real estate is a good way to grow his wealth over the next few years while he still pays a lot of taxes. Because once he starts his own business, it's very hard to get a mortgage from the bank. We already touched on that, so it might be good for him to, for the next few years, buy that real estate, get those mortgages, especially if they're cash flow positive, mostly. Then start his own business. So there's some things that you should already consider when, like now, for your financial plan in the future. And then maybe at the next step, he wants to invest more into his own business to grow it, right? It means marketing, maybe employees and so on. So that can be also an investment, right? Because it's really personal what independence means to you and how you want to structure your life. If it's, having more time with your family, if it's retiring earlier, because that's what it is to a lot of people, that they say like, I don't need all this money when I'm 75 years old. I actually would like to stop working a bit sooner, and or at least be work optional, right? A lot of people have that idea that I want to have the option to stop working, or at least dial down my hours, or do something that pays less salary. That's, I think, for a lot of our clients, what they have in mind is not being dependent on their income and only having to work or only keep working when they feel like it, but they don't have to. So they're building wealth now to get that option, right? And that's something that's very personal. And I think that's something you should figure out, or that we should all figure out before we actually dive into the financial plan, because it has a big impact on it, right? Like, do you want to spend money now to enjoy your life? Do you want to stop working, have the option to stop working, or do you want to have more money for retirement? Like, it really depends on your preference and your feeling of independence.
There's one thing that you also mentioned that I thought about, like it's not linear, right? The whole life is not linear. So there will be phases, a lot of phases. People speak about mini retirements too, like after 5 years of working, they take half a year off, then, maybe go back 5 years. It's very cyclical. Like you have phases, also matters. Like maybe you want to do a world trip, then COVID hits and you're like, okay, fuck it, screw it. I'm going to continue working, right? Like all of this stuff can happen. And, yeah, it's like, okay, when you want to do take a half year off or a year off, or I don't know, to do something, then having that confidence in your finances, like, okay, this is how I'm gonna do it, and this is sort of roughly how I expect to come out of it. I think that can help you a lot to actually, really go for it and make that, life decision, supported by the financial decisions that you can make. yeah, so that's really part of it, being.
I think also, like, as we said, like independence obviously is like different for different people, but it's also different, like the way that you might view it at different points of your life, and what's also important to you at like different points of time. So I remember like when I left banking, I was still quite young, but like maybe like early 20s. And I remember doing like a plan, right? And again, it's not like about like the final plan because like I had like, I think like 8 different things like on my final plan. Like I wanted to do a CFA, I wanted to start a business, I wanted to move countries, I wanted to travel the world, like all the like different things that you can think of, like that was like, okay, this is going to make my life better now. But then ultimately, like that planning process helps you to prioritize which ones are actually important to you, not just purely from a pull, like what's more appealing, but like also from a financial perspective, what actually makes sense for me right now. Can I afford right now, and also what can I maybe plan for in the future? I mean, this was after I quit, so it's not that, oh yeah, I'll work now like a couple more months, or maybe I should have actually done that to then like figure out sort of more, should I quit then or wait? I mean, I think I was pretty burnt out, so I didn't really feel able to do that at the time. But I think like the planning process itself also helps you figure out these priorities. And as I said, like it can also change at different points within your life as you grow older, learn more about like what you want, like what's actually important to you. And yeah, these things change over time too. So I think sort of then doing that planning process over and over again, to really understand like your needs and your priorities is like really helpful to unlock that.
Yeah. And I think, as Alex was mentioning, the case of his uh the case of like buying real estate before you start a business, right? I feel like that's a great example of a lot of the, not necessarily complex, but a lot of the interdependencies that exist inside a financial plan that, sorry for the shameless plug, is a lot easier to do if you have help, right? Because it's very challenging to think about all of these things if it's on top of your existing job, or you're doing it like on weekends on an Excel sheet. At least that was my experience. That was my challenge. That you open the can of worms and there's always something new coming out. I was like, oh, by the way, there's this tax and there's like this tax relief as well. So that's where I see, at least personally, I see a lot of the value. Even being a very DIY person myself with my finances, I see a lot of the value of having professional planning. Because yeah, it is a full-time job. It can be a full-time job. So it's one of those few things that it makes a lot of sense to outsource.
Cool. With that, that's sort of the final word. Let's wrap up this episode where it's about time. I think we spoke a lot about independence today, what it means to each of us. There's some great nuggets in there. I hope everyone listening can take away something from this. And if you have questions around that, if you want to like define what that is or what that can mean for you, and especially how your finances can support your definition of independence, then just reach out to us. We always have like a chat. It's unpaid. Just see how you feel about it. Worst case is you will maybe take something away and learn something. And yeah, that's it. See you next week, guys. Bye bye.